It was September and the sun had set early. My girlfriend Rachel and most of our friends were at the homecoming week bonfire. I was not. Instead, I sat in the park with my best friend, Mike. This weekend was our first homecoming dance, and he didn't have a date. Mike sat next to me on the bench. I watched him measure his torso with his hands, then cluck his tongue. Shelley will say no. I'm too short. You're fine. Philip is 2 inches shorter than you. He and Emily have been going steady since middle school, I said. That's different. He's got great hair, Mike said. I rolled my eyes. Mike chewed his bottom lip and poked and prodded and pinched his body. Why would she want to go out with me anyway? I'm all leg and no torso. You're no less torso than anyone else. You wouldn't know. There's a science to this stuff. I leaned forward and rested my elbows on my knees. Says who? People online, Mike said. You need a break from the people online. He got up from the bench. Look here. He stepped onto the path and stood underneath the lamplight. Shadows obscured his eyes and strengthened the creases in his brow. They stretched his features so his face looked like that of a man twice his age. Mike held up his arms. He dropped them down to his sides. Do you see? I shrugged. What am I looking for? He held his arms out and dropped them again. My arms. They're too long for my torso. I looked. They looked the same length as anyone else's arms. I told him so. He shook his head. I'm uneven. He balanced on one foot. I watched him wobble side to side and thought he might fall. He pointed his arms out and steadied himself and stood up straight. See my leg? Too long. My torso's too short for the rest of me. He held the pose and looked at me expectantly. You look normal to me, I said. Whatever. He dropped his leg, then sat back down on the bench. We listened to the crickets chirp from the overgrown weeds behind the baseball mound. Sprinklers clicked and sprayed water across the baseball field. The summer breeze brought us the smell of wet grass. There has to be something I can do. Stretch myself out somehow. If I was taller, then maybe I'd have the confidence to ask Shelley to homecoming. I picked at something under my fingernail. Don't you think you're being dramatic? How so? I flicked the bit of fingernail dirt away. Rachel said she told Shelley that you were going to ask her to dance. Shelley got giggly and played with her hair a lot. What does that mean? I don't know, that she likes you. Listen, you're an average height, you're funny and the girls like you. It's not like you're ugly. It would be harder to get a date if you were ugly. I might as well be ugly. I'm short enough. That makes no sense, I said. Mike turned his body to face me. Plenty of people online say short guys can't get girls. They say that deep down. Girls don't want shorties like me. That's a broad claim. Rachel says Shelley likes you. I could ask her out if I wasn't so short. Mike rested the back of his head on the back of the bench and looked up at the sky. I did the same. The moon was halfway to full. The light was enough you could see the entire park and the baseball field beyond. Mike chewed his lower lip. He sighed, then got up from the bench. He dusted off the back of his khaki shorts. I think I'm gonna head home. Yeah, me too. We said goodbye. I watched him go. But before he was out of sight, I called to him. He turned. I'll ask Rachel to talk to Shelley again. Get a verbal confirmation. He nodded. See you tomorrow, I said. He turned back around and left. The next day, he wasn't at school. When he didn't show the day after that, I texted him. He didn't respond, so I called. No answer. The third day came and still no Mike. So after school, I went to his house. His mother answered the door. She looked tired. Dark rings circled her red eyes, and I could tell she'd been crying. "Come in," she said. "I'll let Michael know you're here." The inside of the house was dark, except for the living room. I looked in. Outlined in the blue glow of the TV was Mike's father. He sat on the couch like a stone sculpture. His face was expressionless, a beer clenched in his fist. Empty cans littered the floor and coffee table, cylindrical pigeons surrounding a grand statue. I followed her to the base of the stairs, and she called up to Mike. Her voice cracked when she said his name. He replied, "Coming." Mike's bedroom door opened. From inside the room, the silhouette of some great bulk dragged itself out onto the landing. At the sight of it, Mike's mother cupped her hands to her mouth and rushed into the living room. She pushed through the empty cans and threw herself onto the couch, burying her face into her husband's shoulder. Her muffled cries were faint. He remained a statue. Above me, the shape dragged itself towards the stairs. It stopped, paused, caught its breath, then dragged its length forward, only to stop, pause, breathe, and start again. The shape reached the edge of the stairs and peered around the base of the banister. It was Mike, panting and covered in sweat, his mouth stretched into a smile that showed all his teeth. "I've done it." He grabbed the lip of the step, and with a grunt, heaved his great length down the stairs, a long, blotchy tube of flesh carved by lightning bolts of gleaming red stretch marks pulled tight and threatening to split apart. "Do you think she'll say yes now?" I stared at the great, slow-moving thing, trying to understand. A haze of dread clouded my mind, and it became impossible to breathe. I felt suffocated. Suddenly, I took a great gulp of air, then screamed. I ran from the house and never went back. As a child, I loved to watch the snakes in my mum's garden as they slithered over the decorative shale with their long bodies. I was never afraid of them, but it's easy to be afraid when the snake wears your friend's face.
Thanks for calling. Poor Mike. He went from troubled teen to human slinky. Though, his solution to being short was a bit of a stretch. Whatever happened to platform shoes? Well, that's it for the show. Be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to click the bell icon so you know when the next episode's out. As for me, I'll be right here waiting for the next 13th caller.